The biggest testament for NIO is about to begin. Is battery swap stupid? Is it going to fail or is it going to succeed? No matter which side of the road you're on this topic and this argument, we are now at that critical junction where things going forward, we're going to see what the clear conclusion is. Is battery swap actually going to be the future or not? And why am I telling you about this? And this is, of course, good news for shareholders. You guys have all probably seen this chart, this graph, and this graph indicates NIO owners and how they like to replenish their energy. And by the chart, you can see that over 50% actually prefer swapping over charging. However, this is a little bit misleading because battery swapping is free. All right, it's mostly free. Every single NIO owner gets 6 free swaps or more per month forever. And when you have free swapping versus paid charging, of course, people prefer free. All right, it's like saying there's more people that choose free bottled water over paid hand poured water. This chart is very misleading, but right now we are at that critical junction where NIO has essentially cut off free battery swapping for new NIO owners. So existing NIO owners like me, we're still going to get free swaps, but newer NIO owners, they have to pay for swaps, especially if they opt out of the 30,000 RMB free battery swap package, which is what the price cut is all about. So they got to pay for swaps, and you have to look at the fee structure to fully understand how it all stacks up compared to home charging, compared to just regular fast charging, and whether or not it's actually viable, because they did change the fee structure significantly, and I think this has a very big impact on the future of battery swap and whether or not it's going to be successful. So before with battery swap, it was always like charging. You pay by the kilowatt hour, and there's going to be an electricity fee and then a service fee. But right now, they've changed it so that when you go for a swap, there's a flat fixed swapping fee and then plus the electricity fee. What I mean by that is if you look at the fee chart and how much they charge, and you can tell that each battery swap costs around $30 base price, and this is the fixed fee for just swapping, the swapping mechanism, because swapping costs energy as well, and upwards to $50 per swap, 50 RMB per swap. And then you have the electricity fee, which is separate, and you can see from certain swap stations the fee is higher than others, and you also have peak hours and non-peak hours. So it's very interesting to compare these numbers with charging. So for sakes of comparison, we're just going to compare some of the swap stations and some of the charging stations, and the fees at different places will vary, but this gives you a rough idea of what it looks like. So for battery swaps at non-peak hours, I found this one swap station that charges 29 cents per kilowatt hour, and usually with a battery swap you swap around 60 kilowatt hours of power, and an outgoing battery will never have 100% full charge. It's always going to be 92% full charge when the battery comes out. So theoretically speaking, you're going to gain 60 kilowatt hours from the swap. So 0.29 times 60 plus 30, and that comes to 47.4 RMB per swap. And this would be during non-peak hours. So 47.4 compared to charging at non-peak hours, and this is another charger I found. So around 0.3 RMB per kilowatt hour times 60 plus 0.1 RMB per kilowatt hour service fee times 60. That comes to around 26.4. So swapping during non-peak hours, 47.4. and charging non-peak hours 26.4. So there's like a 20 RMB difference, which is I wouldn't say it's very significant, but it could be a deal breaker for some people. And obviously if you have home charging, the fees will actually be slightly even lower during non-peak hours, but that's just during non-peak hours. And then if you go look at swap during peak hours, so peak hours gets pretty expensive. 1.3 kilowatt RMB per kilowatt hour times 60 plus 50, that comes to 128 RMB per swap during peak hours, and then charging during peak hours, 1.21 times 60 plus 0.1 times 60 equals 78.6. So 128 versus charging, which is 78.6. So there's a pretty big discrepancy during peak hours. Yeah, that's a pretty big difference. And then one of the most expensive charging stations that I found during peak hours, 1.7 total fee times 60, that equals 102. So even the most expensive charging station is still more than 20 RMB cheaper than peak battery swap. So 128 versus 102. The flat fee, although it's quite significant, it becomes more insignificant if you have a higher capacity battery. So in that aspect, I think if you have the higher capacity battery, it's much more worth it for a battery swap. So going forward, that's also something to think about. So that comes to the interesting question: will NIO owners still battery swap if it's paid? And the simple answer is it depends. From what I hear on the ground here in China is that most NIO owners, if they use up their 6 free swaps of the month, they just go charge. So right now comes the biggest testament for NIO is, are NIO owners going to swap? From the first impression, some people have complained that this fee is a little bit expensive, but I think the overall user experience is much more ideal than charging, because charging, you got to pick up the heavy cable. Sometimes it's not working. Sometimes the voltage doesn't really get up to the advertised voltage, and charging time takes a long time, more than usual. And also something else you might have to consider is that some of these chargers actually have a parking fee attached to them. So some of these chargers located within shopping malls, the shopping mall also charges a parking fee inside that shopping mall. So that also adds up. In the future, looking at swaps, it is not an alternative to charging, but a supplementary solution to charging. And in that aspect, I think NIO will see great success on highway swap stations, especially when people are trying to go long distances and they don't want to have to charge and wait 1 or 2 hours every 300 or 400 kilometers. And I think our mentality for swap has to really change and not have it like swapping versus charging, but have swapping seen as the faster, better solution, more luxurious solution to charging, and as a supplementary solution. If you have the time to charge, then you can charge and really take advantage of the low prices of charging. But if you have no time and you're in a rush, then you can take advantage of the speed of swapping and pay a little bit extra price. And I think this is the really important thing that shareholders have to understand. Swapping absolutely will not fail, and NIO making them paid really reduces cash burn a lot for these newer NIO purchases. And this is what I always wanted NIO to do, is to end free battery swaps, even though as a NIO owner myself, well, I already have free battery swaps, but considering from the company's perspective, each new NIO sold used to be like poking a tiny little hole inside the cash barrel, leaking some cash out, because you got to provide free battery swaps for life. And right now, that problem is solved. They're no longer poking small holes inside the car, which is really nice. It's my turn to swap, so let's actually get a swap. I've been waiting this whole entire video. I've been waiting for the battery to be fully charged. NIO, what they do really well is sometimes they charge the battery during the night, where battery fee, electricity fee is the lowest. So that's something that I really like. So we're gonna back in. 换嘛. And not to mention the fact that it's all automated makes the process a lot easier than charging, where you have to get out of the car and you have to hold on to the charger. Sometimes the charger can be not that light. This is really a good supplementary solution for especially younger female electric vehicle owners, because some of them can't pick up the heavy chargers. They have difficulty doing so. And swapping, making it automatic, is just much easier to do. You just click a click one button and you're good to go. Personally, I think it should be paid all along. Nothing is ever sustainable if it's free forever. And I personally think the extra cost to battery swap is justifiable for the convenience that you're getting and the time that you save. So if my wife was driving the NIO, my car, and I wasn't around, I would just tell her to swap because it's much more faster, much more convenient. But if I was just driving the car and let's say hypothetically I had no free battery swap, then what I would do is I would be willing to spend the extra time charging than save that time on swapping. So maybe I'll go charge, edit some videos, or watch a movie, or even like film a video with you guys. And the whole thing really depends from person to person. Some people will be stringent on their own budget and spending on charging or gas fees, so to speak. Some people just want to get their car energy replenished as fast as they can and be on the road. How this whole thing turns out, we'll have to see as time progresses and people buy NIOs without free battery swap, and whether or not they still pay for swaps or they just go charge. I'm sure NIO has that statistic, and they'll probably do some deep thinking once they get hold of that statistic. Only then can we say for sure that NIO's battery swap has succeeded or it has not. But I think the road forward battery swap is a very good supplementary method for replenishing energy, especially with high capacity batteries, 150 kilowatt hours. There's no way that you can charge that in a very short amount of time. It's going to take a long time to charge that to full, whereas battery swap, to swap that battery, it's still only going to take you 5 minutes. So that as battery capacity increases more and more, swapping makes more and more sense. Anyways, as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Peace out.